Hello, good evening, and welcome back. The UK government is still concerned about the infection rate of the coronavirus instead of actually the fatality rate, so much so that they've imposed 14,000 lockdown breach fines, most of which seem to be unlawful. And they've decided that, hey, we're not going to have any lifeguards on beaches. If you're in an emergency, then dial 999. Good luck. From the water. You better hope that other people are around in order to help you out. So don't expect to get the same privilege of migrants coming across illegally over the channel. And in Holland, they've decided to go a very different way. They've decided to take the safe route, politically as well as infection way, to say that Dutch singletons advised to seek sex buddy. In the good old days, we would call this a partner, but we'll get right into that in a moment. Gonna finish on a good one. Gonna look forward to the climax here. So, the UK say that the coronavirus infection R rate in the UK creeps up. Yes, according to the BBC, that the idea is to keep it at 1 or below. That is how many people that somebody with coronavirus infects before they are cured, basically. So the total amount of people that they infect. And if it's 1, then they only infect 1. If it's 2, then they infect 2. If it's half, then 1 or 2 people will infect 1, and the other one won't. Or if you prefer per 10 people, if it's 2, then they'll infect 20. If it's 0.5, then they'll infect 5. Very simple. It's exactly what you expect it to be. So the R number at the moment has been sitting between 0.5 and 0.9. Cool. The idea is to keep it below 1, because seeing as we have flattened the curve, and no, it isn't to say to reduce the curve, it is to flatten the curve, as in not to get the infections to decrease, but instead to get them to stay the same. So if we have a total amount of people that are infected, and then we drop the infection rate to 1, then the total amount of people infected remain the same. This is for 2 important reasons. One is because you don't want it so much that if it is so infectious and also so fatal, which it isn't, then you're going to be overburdening the socialized health service, of which, of course, is just going to prioritize whichever political agenda is the forefront of the day, and at the moment it's coronavirus, of course. Previously it has been things like breast cancer, and that's why we all wear the pink ribbons, apparently. But instead, they've decided that they're going to focus on coronavirus, and that's why you've, of course, got the Nightingale wing being built, which hasn't really been used. Just like, of course, the USS Comfort in New York, which, again, I think 173 beds were used in its entirety of being there. It arrived earlier than anticipated and left earlier than anticipated because it wasn't used. So that's a good sign to say that despite the infection rate, as we said before, that 1 in 400 people, according to the official reports, are infected at the moment. That isn't the total amount that have been. That is the amount right now when the infection rate is supposed to be decreasing. That is that it has decreased below 1, as we see here between 0.5 and 0.9, in which case we have flattened the curve. At which point we're saying, well, the NHS can actually deal with the amount of admissions of coronavirus at the moment. So as long as we can keep it that way, then it's fine. If we're expecting it to go through the entire country, or near enough, if we're saying that we can't lock the country down until we've wiped out the virus, but instead we should just lock it down so that we can get it to a manageable rate and then find how to allow the economy to open back up again. That is, to what liberties are we going to permit so that we can keep on top of the virus. If we flatten the curve and it is getting beneath 1, and we found that we have a certain number of people that we can treat, then we can leave it at that. We have flattened the curve, and the curve will stay flat, and we don't need to worry about it. So they're saying that it is creeping up, but once the antibody tests are through, then again, as always, we won't have such a big problem about it. And the BBC are honest enough to say that this latest analysis takes account of the spread of coronavirus in care homes, hospitals, and more widely in society, which also means that they actually give a sense of the R number from around 3 weeks ago, which is before the restrictions were officially lifted. If we're saying that the R rate has increased, either the testings are being done differently, in which case we have a better understanding of how many people are infected and could have actually been at that point, in which case the R rate has not increased. Or, if it has increased, then it would seem as if this lockdown measure either has been ineffective because nobody followed it, or it's been ineffective because people are going to get it anyway, because even when you have social distancing, outside the mass gatherings, for example, supermarkets, once people get inside, they don't care about it at all, especially considering so many people are asymptomatic, that is, anybody that is healthy, and they're more likely to be the ones outside because, let's be honest, that's why they're healthy, in which case they'll be spreading it because they don't know they've got it. So what does that mean for me? What about the regional differences? Yeah, who cares? Cool, job done. So, 14,000 lockdown breach fines imposed. Before we can lift the liberties, why not just milk that for a bit more money? The same as speed cameras, of course. Are they in the most dangerous places? No, of course they're not. They're in the most profitable places, because that's what matters. Is this money then put into making people safer? Not really. It just all goes into the same big pot. And that is a huge problem when it comes to things that are so centralised that all the money from different aspects comes in and then it's redistributed out to where the political agenda thinks is right. In which case you can have things which are not profitable, are not worthwhile, but maybe popular to some particular people who are more likely to vote in one particular area, and therefore that'll be pushed, and in order to get the money to spend on it, it'll be taxed somewhere else. The main example of this is, of course, car tax, which easily covers the cost of all the roads, because, hey, it's about 95% recycled anyway, and it is quite easy to put down. You heat it up, you pour it on, and you let it cool. It's surprised that it isn't done more often, but that is simply because the money that is raised from car tax in order to pay for roads and fixing potholes is not used for that, or at least it is in part because there's more than enough to go around, but instead it's just lumped in order to pay for other things, like useless university degrees. Seeing as only 17% are projected to be able to pay it back in its entirety, and only half of the students will actually make any semblance of payment whatsoever in order to pay back their university fees. So, as I see here, the figures from 27th of March to 11th of May, so a month and a half, show the most fixed penalty notices, 906, were handed out in London by the Metropolitan Police. Yes, well, that's where everybody is, and the police will actually go, hey, we'll you don't seem like you're going to be trouble, so we'll prosecute you, but we're going to lay off the grooming gangs, because those people will actually fight back, and that might be painful, so we're not going to go where it's difficult, we're going to go where it's easy, because that's what police do, isn't it? They are there to break up the people that aren't actually causing a problem and are the easy targets instead of trying to deal with actual criminals. That's why we have the police, and that's why it was created of that private police force in London centuries ago. That's definitely the reason, so good job. You're really staying true to your core roots there, police. Good job, Met. So around the country, in more rural areas, of course, it hasn't been so much of an issue because people aren't in such close proximity anyway. Chances are that it's very difficult to keep the distance if you are in such an urban, densely populated city. Moreover, it's so much easier to be able to keep a 2-meter distance if you see a police car. If you're already in the countryside, it's very easy. And if you have the cover of trees and foliage like armies have used for centuries, if not millennia gone by, then again, you have a much easier way of avoiding the capture. Plus, it's more likely that police who are in the rural areas have a much better understanding of people and aren't so content on just sticking with the letter of the law and instead go with the spirit of the law, which is, seeing as it's English common law predominantly, that's where we get the phrase from, is what should be done. That any good law is done as a descriptive measure, not a prescriptive measure. It is done to say, hey, this is what is working, let us articulate it for you so that you know, and it might help if you ever have a bit of a grey area. It isn't supposed to say, we think this is a good idea, now do it. That is not how laws should ever work. That is not how the 10 Commandments were made, and of course that is the basis of laws for any civilized society. Very straightforward. So, as they mention here, most of these have not been legal, put simply. So they say several figures show 231 people have been brought to court for offences relating to coronavirus. A review by the Crown Prosecution Service found that 56 suspects had been charged incorrectly. All 44 charges brought under the Coronavirus Act allowing police to detain a suspected infectious person for assessment were incorrect. And funny that, of course, if you see the police patrolling around and not having any PPE or taking any personal protection equipment whatsoever, then they are still detaining people, and you think, hang on, why are you doing this? Because they're a risk to other people, and yet you clearly don't think it's such a big deal because you're not protecting yourself from them. in which case you're not actually following the spirit of the law, you're following the letter of the law, and you don't seem to understand what your job is in order to protect society. Instead, you're just being far too authoritarian about it, and it seems like you're going on a power trip instead of serving the community as any decent police officer would do. But hey, at least the CPS has decided to see some light, so there is a positive. And no lifeguards on beaches, Coast Guard warns. So we're seeing nicer weather, and so people are going to the seaside. Why not? It's fantastic. You get some water, you get some UV, you get some warmth. It's humid because it's by the sea and the water's evaporating. It is fantastic. And if it's windy, you get to go windsurfing and sailing. Nice for those who can afford it. Great, except the Coast Guards are not going to be out because, hey, they're too busy patrolling the borders, either for people who are breaking lockdown, but seeing as that opportunity has passed, now they're just patrolling the English Channel, trying to find migrants. And if they do, they'll bring them right into Dover. Oh, you know they will. And then they'll let them off, and they're not going to face their £10,000 fine for breaking lockdown for 14 days. No, of course not. They're not going to pay $1,000. They're not going to pay anything whatsoever because they can't afford it, and they're just released into the wider society on, oh, silly you thought you'd get away with it. Well, joke's on you, because we're going to let you get away with it, and we're not going to deport you, because otherwise you'd go back to Calais, and that's not good, because those camps are awful. So, oh, okay, in that case, maybe they'd prefer to go home. Isn't that a thought? Because the problem with the asylum seeking is that it is supposed to be going to the nearest safe harbour, the nearest safe country, the nearest country that isn't currently at war, one that you can actually take refuge in safely. But that's not how it's used. It's the first country of which you send the papers to. You apply to stay in which case it can be many countries over, like England. And the last I checked, since the troubles ended, we are not bordering a country at war, in which case there shouldn't be any refugees here. And yet there are, which shows that the system is very, very wrong. If people wish to sponsor refugees and bring them over here, even though you'd be helping about 27 times as many people in their own country as if you brought them over here, then by all means do so. But you should also be responsible for their actions if they are not assimilating, because you decided to sponsor them, in which case you are now taking responsibility for them. But hey, we can't be protecting the British people who are instead deciding that maybe I should be more healthy in order to keep my immune system strong, and might make a mistake in doing it. No, Coast Guard. I mean, hey, fine. If you don't want to help people out who are endangering themselves in the water, then don't. But why do the illegal immigrants get special treatment? And last but not least, of course, everybody's favourite, sex buddies. Yeah. Every guy's dream. Sure. But it's so much fun how they're treating coronavirus like STDs used to be treated. And it is basically as simple as that. That it really is. I mean, if you just replace concerns with COVID-19 with AIDS, for example, HIV, it's just like the HIV scare. It really is. So the Dutch government has issued new guidance to single people seeking intimacy during the pandemic, advising them to find a sex buddy. The National Institute for Public Health and Environment says singletons, it's better than loners, should come to an arrangement with one other person. They should be monogamous with one other person. And if it's one other person that they're going to be spending time with, then they've got to like them. Oh my god. They're not really suggesting tradcons. But pairing should avoid sex if one of them suspects they have AIDS. Coronavirus, the advice says. The guidance comes after critics says there was no sex advice for singles. Oh, wow. Well, why don't these critics just go, hey, I think there's something missing here. Here's my recommendation that I think people could do with knowing. Wouldn't that be good? Instead of going, hey, government, you know how you're telling us almost everything to do. There are a couple of things that you haven't told us explicitly what we should be doing, and we are so lost and confused without you stepping on us. So please step on us harder, because we are so lost and confused without feeling your butt on our face. We need it. Until those boot prints are permanent scars, we won't be happy. So please push harder. So they say social distancing measures have been in place in the Netherlands since 23rd of March. When the government imposed what it called an intelligent or targeted lockdown. The rules were far less strict than those of the country's neighbours, permitting small gatherings of people if social distancing was observed. Holland is the west part, Netherlands is all of it. That's the difference. Like Nijmegen is in the Netherlands, but not in Holland. Technically, it just counts The Hague and Amsterdam in Holland. It's the west coast. It's like Portugal and Spain, that kind of thing. I do apologise, Netherlands. But in guidance published on 14th May, the Rhythm said it makes sense that as a single person, you also want to have physical contact during the pandemic. Yes, you do. And of course, not just during the pandemic. People need physical contact. This is shown. The most famous one is, of course, by the monkey study, whereby the baby monkeys were either given the wire cage of their mother, basically, which gave them nourishment, the milk, the food, the liquid food that they needed, and one that was furry and warm and cuddly. And they would much prefer to be with a warm, furry, cuddly one, and would try to stay with that one while reaching out to get the nourishment from the other one, because that human touch is really so important. And if infants do not receive touch, they die. They literally die. If you do not touch an infant, they will die. You can feed them, that's fine, but they will die. And there have been extensive studies into this form of neglect from the USSR, where they thought, oh, central government is so much better at raising children, just like the Liberal Democrats were trying to do at the last election. Coincidence. And that is why, yes, physical contact is actually really important. Well done, Rhythm, for finally finding out. Maybe the New World Order is finding it's not going to be as easy as they anticipated, and we can hope. So, the Rhythm says, for example, meet with the same person to have physical or sexual contact. For example, a cuddle buddy or sex buddy, provided you are free of illness. You could also call them a boyfriend or girlfriend. What a shocker. Make good arrangements with this person about how many other people you both see. The more people you see, the greater the chance of spreading AIDS, the coronavirus. You mean if you're monogamous and only see each other that it's going to be safer? And better for your mental well-being as well? Bloody hell. Wow. You know, Netherlands, if you really wanted to encourage this monogamous behaviour, you could just stop female favoured law courts. I mean, that would be brilliant. You could actually just make the law apply equally despite sex if you really wanted people to find these monogamous relationships and stay with each other. And maybe you could also suggest that there's more to life than jobs and sex. Maybe intimacy and connection is far more important for people. Wouldn't that be nice? So I know it's supposed to be female empowerment to say you can have sex with anybody you want, and you should really work harder than anybody, because what is most important is that you are a really bossy CEO who has sex with everyone. That is where you're going to find true happiness, because I think that's a very misleading message. And I don't know who you're trying to please there. What's the point? It's always just the GDP argument, isn't it? I mean, when did you find, this ambitious female CEO? Ambitious, yeah, that's good. I mean, surely she wants a great family. She wants to be supportive. She wants to take care of her children. No. She wants to be very competitive and beat you at everything you do, so that she will take your manhood and squeeze your balls in a vice continuously, perpetually, and tighter each time. So, I just so want to be with this lady. It's not going to happen, folks. So they say, don't have sex with your partner if they have been isolated because of AIDS, coronary infection. This will never get old. Sex with yourself or... Sex with yourself. Hey, nofap guys. It's like, I don't have sex. That's just masturbating in a woman. So, okay. I mean, you're sticking true with seminal attention. So sex with yourself or with others at a distance is possible. I mean, it depends how far you can ejaculate. Okay. It adds suggesting erotic stories and masturbating together as possible solutions. Erotic stories or porn. Good job, guys. Good job. You could take this time to actually get to learn about somebody and get to know them and find out if you're compatible, because you won't just be relying on sex in order to be with each other, and you can actually find out about your deepest, darkest fears and your goals, your ambitions, your philosophies, your life plans, and then see if you will actually connect and fit. Or you can just try to have sex over the phone. I guess that works too for the Netherlands. Great job. Never stop doing what you're doing, Netherlands. It's clearly working out for you perfectly. But hey, for everyone else who is actually deciding to make themselves a better version of themselves, the strongest possible version of themselves, as always, have a good one.